What's up? What's up? Hold on just a second. We got the overlay still there. Bam. There we are. Hey, y'all. What's happening? Welcome to Storytime with Julian. Today is Thursday, February the what? I forgot already. What is it? February the something. It's an important day. It's 11th. 11th. Yes. It's Thursday, February the 11th, and this is episode 79 of Storytime with Julian. I am your host and lead griot, Julian Long, and what's happening? Good to see everybody. I see that Terry Meredith is present. I see Saniqua Marie Sane is here watching on the YouTubes. I see Erica Goodman is on the YouTubes as well. Good to see you. Judy Lee found the chat box. She was a little worried about it, but I see that she's there, and that's fantastic. I see Angela Rains on YouTube. I see Foxy Kitty on YouTube. I see Iowan on YouTube. I see Iowan has her crochet with her, which is what's up. I see that homie Lou is on the YouTube and loves the new intro. Man, listen. And hold up. Shout out to homie Lou. Now, hold on, let's be for real. Shout out to Marky's mother, who is celebrating her 66th birthday today. Marky's mom, I don't know if you're here, but happy birthday to you. And if you're not under the sound of my voice, but you find out later, from everybody here at Storytime with Julian, happy birthday and many happy returns of the day. And if you are here, I hope that you enjoyed tonight's story. We're going to give you a special shout out to you. I see Marie Toussaint is here sliding in on the YouTube. Melanie Monroe, I know who Melanie Monroe is. Poetry is my passion is here on the YouTubes. That's what's up. Mimi Brown still asking and telling what it do. The correct way to say it is, what does it do? I don't know if any of y'all are fans of the Boondocks cartoon, but that is the thought that comes into my head every time I read that. All right, before we make much more ado about the to-do, here's what I need for y'all to do. I'm going to go ahead and put this banner up. You have seen this banner a number of times, and some of you have done your due diligence and you've subscribed on all the channels. If you have, fantastic. If you have not, this is your opportunity. Here's what's going down. Here is the what is of tonight. We're going to be reading from this book. This is Nyumbani Tales by Charles R. Saunders. And we'll get into a little bit more about him tonight. But to let you know the general tone of this, and I think most of you all have seen the promo, the general tone of this book is what is a subgenre of fantasy known as sword and soul. And this is a term that Mr. Saunders himself coined after noticing that there was a lack of Black representation in the fantasy world, with a few rare exceptions. And even among those rare exceptions, what he noticed was largely stereotypical racist tropes. And so he set out to change that. Now, that's just a quick little primer, and we'll talk about him a little bit more in a minute. I really wish the light were a little bit brighter. I'm not 100% thrilled with that. We'll remedy that shortly. But here's why I needed you all on YouTube. This is all I need you to do. I need for you to subscribe and or like and follow us on Instagram. Like and follow us on Twitter. And after you have liked and follow us, like tweet a comment when you like and follow us on Twitter, and then or on Instagram, and then I want you to copy that comment over here on YouTube and paste it so I know that you did it. That's what I'm asking of you. I want you to follow or like or whatever is the correct nomenclature for that platform on Instagram. We are Story, and I need you to do it on both, on the dose of them. So follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, make a comment on either of those platforms. I don't care which one you make the comment on, but then copy that comment and paste it into the YouTube box so that I know what you did, because I'm actually going to go and look for you and find that comment. And for 2 people, one from each platform, one from the Twitters and one from the Instagram, you're going to get a copy of tonight's book. That's it. So now, if you're not really into fantasy, you might be like, well, I don't really like fantasy, so I ain't going to do all that. But somebody in your life does. Somebody in your life would love that book. And there is almost no better gift except for, freedom and equality that you can give somebody than a book. So don't be that person that doesn't give a book because you didn't feel like participating. Make sure to do those things. After tonight's episode, sometime tomorrow or over the weekend, we will announce who the two winners are. We will make a post on the Book of Faces and we'll announce who the two winners are. And actually, no, I'm sorry. That's silly. Why would I do that? On Twitter and on Instagram, we will announce who the winners are. That way we'll see you following, because you have to wait and see if the notification comes up about you having won. Bam. So that's what I'm asking of you. And I wanted you here on YouTube so that you can comment back, because this is where we want to find everybody, is here on YouTube. And look at that. Look at the YouTube conversation. Just a flowing, just a nice and easy. It's almost just like Facebook. People can comment on both the places. Look at that. Kitty Foxy is here. Angela Rains is here. What else? Who else? Rose Bloom Management Group is here, managing. Love it. Judy Lee says the 11th. I forgot what we were talking about with that. The new intro is hot. The new intro is actually an old intro. I used to use it for the promos, and then I stopped doing promos. I didn't know if y'all were watching the promos, and I'm guessing not, since y'all didn't know that was an old intro. But yeah, I used to use that on the promos, and I might start doing promos again. The promos were just to kind of let you know what we would be reading, and then for a while I was doing recaps of what we did read, but I couldn't tell if people were really watching them, so I pulled back on doing that because it was a lot of extra work. But if people enjoy them, I'll do them again. Let me know in the comments here on YouTube. Let me know in the comments if that's content that you think is worthwhile. If it is, then I'll go back to doing them. It's not really that much of a problem. Now, back to Charles R. Saunders. In 2020, in May of 2020, Charles R. Saunders went on to join the rest of the ancestors. Now, what's fascinating about Charles R. Saunders is that he really created these amazing worlds, and his work influenced so many other people, and yet people don't really know him. This isn't a known name. So in the world of fantasy, and I know a lot of Black folk love fantasy, but don't necessarily find ourselves in it. Like, it's a tough search sometimes. But a long time ago, back in the 70s, this man was telling some stories, and he wrote a phenomenal novel featuring featuring his main character, Imaro. That was his hero. That was sort of like his Conan, if you will. And Imaro went through, a series of adventures, but that was sort of the hero that you followed. And he coined this genre that really focused on Afrocentric themes. He borrowed, actually, the word nyumbani is derived from the Swahili for home, and he chose that because he thought of Africa as home, not just home to all Black people, but the original land being home to all people, the birthplace of civilization. And so he wanted to use African themes in his work. So he borrowed heavily from African themes and traditions, and then he kind of twisted those and sort of created this new thing that he called Sword and Soul. Because in the 70s, it was soul. That was how we talked. That was what it was about. And the genre was incredibly influential. Let's see, there's a couple of quotes I'm going to read from the back of the book just so you kind of get a sense of it. A Charles Saunders tale is a griot's song, an alchemy of history and magic, both brutal and unflinching, and a reminder to all who write sword and soul work in his long shadow. That's Maurice Brodus, the author of Knights of Britain Court. With his visionary take on African-themed sword and sorcery, Charles Saunders was a decade ahead of his time. He is a true original. The rest of us are still trying to catch up with him. That is from David Anthony Durham, author of the Acacia trilogy. So if you're familiar with those works, they are informed and influenced by this man. He passed on rather unceremoniously in May of 2020. And when I heard about it and kind of discovered him, I was like, well, wait a minute, not discovered him, but I was aware of him. I was like, well, wait a minute, hold up. Let me find something that I can read to present him to the Storytime audience because I feel like this is something y'all should hear. Wonder if he has a collection of short stories other than these novels, because excerpts can be troubling. And lo and behold, he does. And that's this book right here. And if you'd like a copy of this book, you already know what to do. I will refresh and make sure it's clear. If you are not yet following us on Instagram and Twitter at Storytime Julian, do that now. Then make a comment on one of those platforms. Copy that comment and post it into the YouTube comment section. And I'll tell you at the end of the show, post your comment at the end of the show. And that way I will know that you made a comment over and that you followed us. And that way I can connect the dots and I know who to give the book to. And we will announce the winners and get your addresses. We're going to give away 2 copies. We'll announce the winner and get your addresses over the weekend on the platforms, Twitter and Instagram. Okay. Yeah, it's a little complicated, but y'all are smart. Y'all are smart people. I believe in you. One of the things that I've loved about this book already, just skimming through it and preparing, because I've had this for a while and was going to start it a couple of weeks ago and said no. And so in preparing for it, I've skimmed through and what this author, what Mr. Saunders does that I really dig is he writes intros to all of his stories to kind of give a framework for the time and space in which he created them and kind of what the intended takeaway was. I love when authors do that because it helps me to feel closer to them and to their work. And so what we found, let's see, we've Octavia Butler does this. I believe Nalo Hopkinson does this. I know Nafisa Thompson Spires at the end of her book not only has, she gives comments, but she gives like instructions on how you should think about it and teach it, which is one of the dopest things I've ever seen. So just really, really cool stuff. And I'm very excited to share that with you. So before we actually begin the story, I'm going to read you his comment about the story. Other than Imaro and Dosoye, Pomfis is my favorite character. At the time Imaro first began taking shape in my imagination, Pomfis was there too. The idea of an outsized warrior like Imaro teaming up with a pygmy intrigued me. By the way, back then the term pygmy was not considered a pejorative in describing the small people who live in the forests of Central Africa. These days, the preferred term is Mbuti or Bambuti, and that's the reference I will continue to use. Indirectly, I may have been influenced by Fritz Liebert's Farford and the Grey Mouser in conceiving Imaro and Pomfi, but I did not pattern either of my characters' personalities after that famous pair. In the beginning of their respective sagas, Pomfi shared the stage with Imaro and Tanisha. Sometimes he even stole the show. But I had always planned on writing about Pomfi's misadventures in the time before he met Imaro. The Blacksmith and the Bambuti, which appeared in a small press magazine called Escape in 1977, takes place during the Bambuti's time as a Njima. Hold on. Nope. Let me say that again. Mjimja, or jester, at the court of the Sha'a in Tanzania, one of the greatest kingdoms of Nyumbani's east coast. Readers of the novel Imaro, The Trial of Bohu, will be aware that Pomfis was not the Bambuti's original name. At the Shah's court, he was known by another name that was not exactly flattering. To avoid confusion, I referred to him as Pomfis in this story. I might add that I had more fun writing this tale than any other to date. So that is the man himself talking about this story, and we are just about to begin The Blacksmith and the Bambuti by Charles R. Saunders. Under ordinary circumstances, Walukaja the blacksmith would have been elated when the royal summoner presented him with a single black hornbill feather. Such a presentation meant that the recipient was invited to appear at the court of the Sha'a, the ruler of Azania. Rarely was such an honor bestowed upon a common artisan. But Walukaja's huge, calloused hand nearly crushed the fragile feather before he remembered that he would be required to present it at his royal audience. The red-turbaned summoner had taken a step backward when he saw Walukaja's fingers flex. The relaxation of the dark hand reassured the functionary. "I'm sorry, Walukaja," the summoner said, "but the Sha'a must have found a way to snare you. Otherwise, he would have never sent for you like this. By the way, I am instructed to inform you that the Shah expects your presence within the hour. 1 hour? The blacksmith bellowed. But what about the hoe blades I promised to Kanu Kamau? Whose wrath would you rather face? The summoner asked. Kanu Kamau's or the Shah's? Briefly, Walukaja contemplated those alternatives. Oh, all right, he grumbled. I'll be there. The summoner breathed a deep sigh of relief as he walked out of the shop's door to return to the palace. Had the blacksmith refused to comply with the Shah's bidding, the summoner would have been obliged to bring Walukaja by force, a prospect at once ludicrous and improbable, given the summoner's spindly frame and Walukaja's burly bulk. As he stalked like a white-robed stork through the streets of Mavindi, Azania's capital, the summoner sincerely regretted that, in all probability, Walukaja would no longer be seen pounding hot iron at his forge. Still, the summoner began to wonder who would eventually take the place of the taciturn craftsman. Meanwhile, in the square structure that was his shop, Walukaja muttered curses to all the gods and demons he could think of as he snuffed out the fire in his forge and sent his apprentice home. A heavily muscled, ebony-skinned man of medium height and middle age, Walukaja was considered the best blacksmith in Mavindi, which meant he was also the best in all of Azania. Among the common people of the city and its surrounding villages, he was popular because the implements he made worked well and lasted long. He made hoe blades and picks for the farmers who tended the shambas, swords, spears, and armor for warriors and hunters, axes to cut back the forest that encroached on the kingdom's frontiers. But Walukaja also shaped metal into wonderful likenesses of birds, animals, and people, all so lifelike that it seemed amazing that they did not breathe. The latter skill was the cause of his current predicament. Walukaja exhaled heavily. Why must the Shah, the wealthiest monarch on the East Coast, be so greedy? Why had the Shah collected all the figurines Walukaja had made for the nobles and merchants of Mavindi? And why had the Shah previously sent a message proposing that Walukaja close his shop and come work at the palace making figurines exclusively for the royal collection? Anyone else would have been thrilled at that prospect, but not Walukaja. A simple, practical man, he gained a great deal of satisfaction from the demonstrable value of a hoe or a spear. Even the jointed toys he made for children brought the pleasure of play. The figurines were little more than a pastime for him, made on impulse during the time he spared from practical work, and that was all he cared for. Thus, he had turned down the Shah's offer. The Shah had not appreciated Walukaja's refusal. The monarch was puzzled and perturbed that Walukaja would forego the chance for a life of luxury and ease in his palace. Yet, for all his life and death authority, the Shah could not force the blacksmith to comply with his wishes. Like all artisans in Azania, Walukaja was free by law to ply his trade wherever he wished. But the Shah was clever, ruthless, and resourceful. Under his regime, Azania gained ascendance over Zanj, its rival neighboring kingdom. If the Shah was sufficiently confident to issue a royal summons, then he must have found a way to secure Walukaja's services, even the guild judges would not be able to challenge. Reluctantly, Walukaja removed his sweat-stained leather apron and began to pull his best clothes onto his heavy frame. He would honor the royal summons and hope for the best while anticipating the worst. I don't see any comments from y'all. Let me know if you're still listening. I mean, I'm sure you're listening because you're still present, but let me see some of those comments. Let me know what you're thinking about it. And hold on for just a second. All right. Though the Shah chose to hold Walukaja's audience in the shade of an outdoor pavilion erected in the garden of his palace, the pomp and splendor of the court was undiminished. Regal, imperious, aloof, The monarch sat on a throne carved from a single block of obsidian. A voluminous azure blue khanza swathed the royal form, and cloud-white sleeves of his shati reached from his elbows to his wrist. On his head, the traditional diadem of Azanian monarchs rested. It was a brocaded cloth headpiece that extended from his forehead to his chin. A dozen golden quills sprouted from the top of the headpiece. From its bottom and sides, the ndevu, a beard-like decoration made from the hair and tails of the Gareza monkeys, descended almost to his waist. The face the headpiece surrounded was umber in hue, with dark eyes holding a steady, regal gaze, and full lips turned downward in a frown of impatience. A man of advanced reigns, the Shah disliked petty annoyances, such as Walukaja's obduracy. He intended to settle this matter once and for all. The purposeful attitude had communicated itself to the rest of the court. Nobles high in the ranks of the Shah's council stood solemnly according to rank on both sides of the obsidian throne. Their khanzas were every shade other than the royal blue, and unlike the Shahs, the nadevus beneath their headgear reached only a short distance past their chins. Close to the throne stood 6 stalwart young men. These were the Shah's designated heirs. Seated on woven raffia mats at the Shah's feet were his 7 senior wives and 15 of his daughters. Jeweled ornaments winked like stars in their high-piled bushes of black hair, and a sheen of perfumed oil glistened on their bare brown shoulders. Silken gowns patterned with geometric designs cascaded from breast to ankles, circled by coils of gold. Other than the Shah himself, only the yellow-skinned ambassador from Kuanyang sat in a chair. Kuanyang was a country beyond the Bahari Mashiriki, the Eastern Ocean, with which Azania pursued a profitable trade. Thus, its envoy was given a privilege denied even to the Shah's sons. Dispersed at strategic intervals throughout the assemblage were spearmen of the Imperial Guard, accoutred in conical helmets, chainmail armor, and capes made of leopard hide. Clad in the white turban, shati and suruli, and the common classes of Mavindi, Walukaja felt out of place amid the magnificence of the Shah's pavilion. The company of the wealthy and highborn was not for the likes of him. Sullenly, the blacksmith looked at the ground between his bare toes and waited for the Shah to speak. But before the monarch could, another member of the court made his presence known. Of all the people thronged under the pavilion, this new arrival was the most arresting in appearance. It was Pomfis, an mjimja or court gesture. Other than a skirt and leglets fashioned out of yellow grass and a straw hat shaped like a flattened cone, the Bambuti was naked, revealing a stocky, well-proportioned physique. His skin was a bit lighter than that of most Tanzanians, and his impish face was distinguished by a broad, bulbous nose. Pomfis made his entrance in an uncourtly manner. He repeatedly took 5 shuffling steps forward, and then thrust out his grass-covered rump on the 6th. Before the Mjimja progressed more than halfway to the throne of the Shah, nearly everyone under the pavilion was laughing uproariously. Only the Shah and the blacksmith were not amused. Neither man was in any mood for merriment. "Stop that, Pomfis!" the Shah shouted in annoyance. "This is no time for your antics." "As you wish, O mighty Shah," the Mjimja said in a squeaky falsetto tone. And at the end of a flawless series of forward somersaults, Pomfis seated himself cross-legged at the monarch's feet. "Now, Walukaja," the Shah said after decorum had been restored, "I wish to make a wager with you. It will involve a major test of your skill. Are you willing to match your skill as a blacksmith against any conceivable odds?" For all his impressive array of work-hardened muscles, Walukaja was a diffident man. But when his skill at his art was questioned, the blacksmith had the confidence of a lion. "I am willing, O mighty Shah," he said. "Excellent," the Shah said enthusiastically, a smile forming above his ndevu. Then you will have no objection to the following test. I want you to make for me a man of iron. And I am not talking about a mere figurine. I want you to make me a man who can walk, talk, and fight. I want a man who has knowledge in his head and feeling in his heart. Make such a man, and I will never again ask you to come and work in the palace. But if, within 5 days, you have not succeeded in this task, your services will be mine, exclusively. The monarch's gaze bored directly into that of Walukaja. Do you agree to this wager? Walukaja's shoulders slumped, and his head hung disconsolately. He knew that the Shah had easily outwitted him. The blacksmith was bested the moment he accepted the Shah's challenge. Even so, a core of stolid stubbornness caused him to return the Shah's penetrating stare. In 5 days, as the Mulungu wills, O mighty Shah, the blacksmith said. After Walukaja bowed respectfully, the Shah gave him permission to depart. Ordinarily, the Shah's devious triumph would have served a cue for a witticism from the Mjinja. For once, however, Pomfis remained silent. He gazed thoughtfully at the powerful figure stalking out of the shade of the pavilion. He does want a whole lot of bot. He is absolutely asking for that. All right. For 2 days, Walukaja's forge lay cold and silent. He had sent word to his apprentice that he need not come back to work. Indeed, it would be better if the young man planned on learning his trade from someone else. The few people who sought out Walukaja came away with sad faces, for they despaired that Walukaja would do anything but sit on a stool and stare at his motionless bellows until the royal summoner visited him again. Then came a visitor who would not be turned away. Entering the doorway without announcing himself, Pomfis walked directly toward the brooding blacksmith. "Yambo, Master Blacksmith," the Bambuti said. "I'm here to help you solve your problem." "Go away, Toto," Walukaja muttered, using the Azanian word for child. "I am not making toys anymore." "Toto indeed," the Bambuti huffed. "I am no child. Do you not recognize me, you big buffalo?" Walukaja looked more closely at his visitor and saw that indeed it was the Njimja, but Pomfis was now clad in the garments of an ordinary Azanian. Though the Bambuti was about the height of an average 10-year-old, the mature proportions of his physique belied his diminutive size. Even his voice sounded more like that of an adult now. "Sorry," Walukaja apologized. "You do not look the same without your costume." Pomfis laughed heartily. "Oh, the Shah insists that I wear that get-up in court because he thinks that's what the Bambuti are supposed to look like," Pomfis said. "He could be right or wrong. I was taken from the forest when I was too young to remember. Back to the business at hand, though. The Shah has presented you with a problem that is insoluble, right?" "Right." "Well, I have always believed there is no such thing as an insoluble problem, and I am going to help you find the solution to this one." "How?" My, Pomfis said, head cocked at an inquisitive angle. "Succinct, aren't we? To answer your question, if the Shah is asking you to do the impossible, then you should ask no less of him." Walukaja stared in bewilderment. "What do you mean?" he demanded. "We'll talk details later," Pomfis responded. The Bambuti looked around the blacksmith cluttered shop. Forgive my presumption," Pomfis said, "but it looks as though your wives aren't very particular about housekeeping." "I don't have any wives," said Walukaja. "No wives?" Pomfis said with a stunned expression on his face. "Why, with all the farmers and herdsmen out in the outlands bringing their daughters to the city looking for wealthy husbands, there must be 5 women for every man in Mavindi." "Guess somebody's got my 5," Walukaja muttered. He was an introverted man who slipped from taciturnity to absolute silence in the presence of a woman, especially one who coveted the share of his profits in metalworking establishment. Pomfrey said, shrewdly eyeing the blacksmith. That's a problem to be dealt with later. But now, wait, Walukaja interjected. Why are you offering me aid? What is it you want from me? I see you're becoming more inquisitive, Pomfrey said, as he pulled up a stool and sat down. That's a quality I like. Sentimental beneath his gruff exterior, the blacksmith nodded in sympathy as Pomfis recounted how he had been captured as a child by Kome slavers raiding at the edge of the great Ituri Kuaba forest. The Kome sold the young Bambuti to the Sha'a as a curiosity. Only rarely did a Bambuti survive when being removed from the forest. It was the idea of the Sha'a's third-ranking wife to have Pomfis trained to be an Njinja. No other East Coast monarch, from Kilawa to Kitanwa, could boast of having a Bambuti in such a role. So, Walukaja, I am only a slave, and a ridiculous one at that, Pomfis said. Had I been left in the Ituri Kubwa, I would have lived free among my people, hunting bongo and okapi. Here, in Mavindi, I exist as a mere toy, a living plaything to amuse others. And so I live to amuse myself, usually at my master's expense. This time, you, my burly friend, are helping me at my game. Or have you not guessed that it was I who suggested to the Sha'a the most foolproof way of acquiring your services? You! Walukaja cried, jolted from his mood of empathetic understanding and catapulting from his stool. Huge hands shot toward Pomfis' throat, but the Njinja executed a deft backflip and landed well out of the big man's reach. Careful, Master Blacksmith, Pomfis cautioned as he fastidiously smoothed his shati. You know the penalty for damaging the property of the Sha'a. Having little desire to be publicly impaled, Walukaja made no further move toward the Bambuti, but the anger in the blacksmith's eyes would have given pause even to the barbarian warriors of the hinterland. Be calm, Walukaja, Pomfis said. The best part of the game isn't getting you into this mess. It's getting you out of it. Now, listen closely. Walukaja listened. There was little else he could do. Oh, mighty Sha'a, how can you tell if a gorilla is in your bed? Pomfis asked. I do not know, the Sha'a replied. How can you? You can smell the bananas on its breath. An equal measure of groans and guffaws greeted Pomfis' jest. The Sha'a simply shook his head and smiled. That was not one of the Mjima's better witticisms, a noble remarked to a silk merchant. True, the merchant replied, but at least it's better than the giraffe jokes he was telling last week. Sagely, the noble nodded, while absently stroking the ndevu on his chin. On this day, the retune of the Sha'a was hold on, I don't actually know that word. Retinue. That's a new one on me. Okay, write that down for later. On this day, the retune of the Sha'a was gathered in the audience chamber of the sprawling palace. Much more magnificent than the outdoor pavilion, the audience chamber featured a gigantic throne made from blocks of pink-veined marble inlaid with panels of ivory, silver, and gold. For the Kuan Yang ambassador, there was a seat of polished granite. The huge expanse of the tiled floor was sufficient to accommodate a small army of the Sha'a's guardsmen. To complete the chamber's grandeur, a double row of elongated ebony sculptures led from its entrance to the foot of the Sha'a's throne. Pomfis was in the midst of explaining the outcome of a highly improbable mating between a gorilla and a gazelle when the trumpet of the captain of Dor sounded a series of ear-splitting blasts, signaled the arrival of an unsummoned individual. Walukaja, the blacksmith, desires audience with the Sha'a, the captain of the Dor bellowed. Then by all means let him in, said the Sha'a, Glancing at Pomfis, he added, "It seems the blacksmith's obstinacy is overrated. After only 3 days, he comes to capitulate." As the she-elephant said when propositioned by the mosquito, "Perhaps," the bambooti murmured. Nervous perspiration beaded Walukaja's brow as he walked down the aisle of statues and executed his obligatory bow at the foot of the throne. His lips moved as he struggled to remember exactly what Pomfis had told him to say. "So, Walukaja, have you completed my Iron Man ahead of schedule?" the Shah inquired with thinly veiled mockery. "No, Almighty Shah, I haven't." "Indeed. Then you wish to admit your failure and agree to only work for me?" "No, Almighty Shah, I don't." "Then why are you here?" Uh, well, in order to make your living man of iron, I need special materials. I must have a certain kind of fuel and special water to bring such a man to life." "Just what do you need, Walukaja?" the Shah asked. "Whatever it is, I'm certain I can provide it. After all, I am the Shah." No one noticed Pomfis' suppressed snort of laughter as Walukaja gulped, dug his finger into the neck of his shati, and went on. "Almighty Shah, to heat the iron, I must have 1,000 loads of dried hearts of the aardvark. For aardvarks are tenacious beasts, and only tenacious fuel can bring life to cold iron. And also, to keep the fire burning too fiercely, I need 100 pots of rhinoceros tears. Only such tears could slake such a fire. You see, Almighty Shah, ordinary charcoal from wood and ordinary water from wells are of no use in making the man you desire." Silence. Not the Shah reigned in the audience chamber. Not only were Walukaja's incredible, this was also the longest utterance anyone had ever heard from the blacksmith. Behind a convenient pillar, Pomfis reveled in glee, for events were unfolding exactly as he had planned. Finally, the Shah was able to speak, or at least sputter. "These requests, absurd," the monarch said. "They are ridiculous, preposterous. There aren't enough aardvark hearts in all of New Mani to fill 1,000 load baskets with their hearts. And rhinoceros tears. Why, a whole pride of lions would not be sufficient to make rhinoceros cry. Are you attempting to mock me by making such impossible requests?" "No more than you mocked me, Almighty Shah, by asking me to perform the impossible request of making a man or iron with knowledge in its head and feeling in its heart," Walukaja retorted hotly. Behind his pillar, Pomfis cringed in consternation. He hadn't told Walukaja to say that. He was supposed to say something more diplomatic, such as, "Can a humble blacksmith like me hope to succeed where the mighty Shah admits he cannot?" But Walukaja had forgotten those words and spoken out of stubborn, self-righteous resentment. Pomfis knew what was coming next. The Shah's mouth had almost disappeared behind his ndevu, as did those of some of the Retun. Others reacted with discreet chuckles. Some of the bolder courtiers went as far as to laugh aloud. "I think he has you, Shah," said Npichdo, the most senior of the gathered nobles. "Has me!" the Shah thundered. As the blue-robed monarch rose from his throne, he towered like a huge bird of prey, and his seamed face was twisted in regal wrath. The members of the court quailed in the face of his heavy breathing and flexing hands. Even the stolid Walukaja took a step backward. "Has me!" the monarch repeated incredulously. "By Mulunga, we shall see who has whom. Listen well, blacksmith. By this time tomorrow, I want my Iron Man here. Fail to deliver, and you die." Walukaja's stomach dropped to his feet. for the Shah had just given him a death sentence. There was no question of disobedience or even escape. Disobedience of a Shah's edict was unthinkable. Like a man suddenly bereft of the will to live, the blacksmith turned and trudged out of the audience chamber. More precipitously, the others followed. Within moments, the audience chamber was cleared, with only the Kuan Yang ambassador departing with any degree of dignity. Only two people remained: the Shah, brooding indignantly, and Pomfis, thinking desperately. Okay, so it is indeed retinue. Thank you so much. All right, cool. I'm looking at the comments. I'm really, really excited. Mimi Brown corrected herself, said, no, he doesn't want an Autobot. He wants Ultron. Okay. I'm tickled. All right, cool. So I gathered from the context what the word meant. I just don't think I've ever said it, and I can't remember having seen it before, but retinue. Thank you so much. On with the story. As the night echoed with the clang of hammer against metal, only one person in all of Mavindi dared go near the shop of Walukaja, and that one went stealthily. The walls of the squat building reverberated with the violence of the blows the blacksmith smashed against a bar of red-hot iron as the intruder slipped through the entrance. It was not by accident that the shape of the bar Walukaja was beating bore a rough resemblance to a certain diminutive member of the Shah's court. Well, you certainly planted your foot in the elephant dung today, Master Blacksmith, said the true object of Walukaja's rage. Slowly, the blacksmith turned his head. His eyes locked with those of the Pomfis. Then they narrowed into gleaming slits of fury. His lips curled back from his teeth, and the muscles beneath his leather apron tensed in anticipation. With an inarticulate growl, Walukaja sprang toward the Bambuti. He was determined that if he must die, at least the bringer of his misfortune would die with him. Shah's property or no Shah's property. But Pomfis was as elusive as a frightened impala. What followed was a dance of frenzied lunges by the blacksmith and desperate feints and dodges by the Bambuti. Occasionally, Walukaja managed to seize a part of Pomfis's clothing, but Pomfis was always able to tear himself free. By the time the blacksmith's fruitless chase ended, Pomfis was nearly naked. Part of Walukaja's disinclination to continue his pursuit was the state of his head after he slammed it against the edge of the table beneath which the Mjinja had just dived. Are you some kind of Dijin sent by the Mashtan to punish me for my transgressions? Walukaja. Take that one from the top. Are you some sort of Dijin sent to me by the Mashtan to punish me for my transgressions? Walukaja groaned as he held his head and leaned groggily against the table. I am the person who will save your skin if you listen to me this time, Pomfis retorted. If you do as I suggest, you'll come away with your life and more. Understood? Wearily, Walukaja nodded in agreement. To himself, he wondered, why me? The next morning, the royal summoner solemnly approached Walukaja's shop. With him came a dozen fully armed soldiers. Although resistance against the Shah's edict was forbidden, on rare occasions it did occur, and if Walukaja chose not to comply, he could be a dangerous foe indeed. But the blacksmith showed neither rebellion nor resignation when they saw him, though his face and posture betrayed the weariness of a long night's work. Wordlessly, he accepted the hornbill feather from the summoner. Then he gestured toward a litter bearing a large object covered with a white cloth. Could some of you help me carry this to the palace? Walukaja grunted. 3 bemused soldiers grasped the handles of the litter, while Walukaja took the 4th. As they lifted the litter, the soldiers found the thing beneath the cloth somewhat heavy, though the weight didn't appear to bother the blacksmith. Soon, the soldiers were sweating and puffing with exertion as they carried their burden through the streets of Mavindi. A curious crowd soon began to follow the procession. They wondered what Walukaja was up to. Had the blacksmith surrendered to madness, believing he could really make a living Iron Man? Or had he cleverly constructed something especially exquisite for the Shah, hoping to exchange it for his life? Half of Mavindi was wondering what was under the cloth by the time the Walukaja and his escort reached the palace. Before long, Walukaja and his litter were in the audience chamber. A larger than usual number of courtiers and spectators were gathered in the chamber, for they longed to witness a repetition of the singular events of the day before. So focused was everyone's attention on Walukaja that few paid much attention to the new costume that Mjimja was wearing. Unlike his usual skimpy attire, on this day he wore a construction of dried grass that covered him from head to foot, with the exception of a pair of round eye holes. The Shah's gaze shifted from Walukaja to the litter, then back to Walukaja. "So, blacksmith," the monarch said, "have you brought me a man of iron who can walk, talk, fight? A man with knowledge in his head and feeling in his heart?" "I have, O mighty Shah," Walukaja replied. With that, he reached down and pulled the cloth away from the object on the litter. Gasps of surprise swept through the crowd at the sight thus revealed, for on the litter lay a man-like shape, fashioned similarly to the jointed toys Walukaja made for children, and it was beginning to sit up of its own volition. Even the eyes of the Shah widened in astonishment as the iron construct lurched shakily to its feet. Due to the haste with which it was built, the 6-foot Iron Man was not exactly pleasing to the eye. Its body was barrel-shaped, and its limbs cylindrical. Its head looked very much like an inverted bucket. Holes in the metal approximated human features, and similarly punctures on its torso outlined the musculature of a powerfully built man. Beautiful Walukaja's creation was not. Nevertheless, it clanked and rattled its way to the foot of the throne and bowed. "I am Intu Chuma, the Iron Man, at your service, O mighty Shah," the simulacrum said in a hollow, tinny tone. Pandemonium swept through the chamber. "Sorcery!" cried some. "Jinn!" whispered others. "A trick!" sneered the cynical. If I didn't see him standing over there in that grass costume, I would swear Pomfis had a hand in this," Mchicho whispered to the Shah. Before the Shah could reply, Ntu Chuma began to strut back and forth before the throne, singing to the accompaniment of clanking feet. "I walk like a human walks, I talk like a human talks, I know what a human knows, I feel, and the feeling shows I'm made to Walukaja's plan, O mighty Shah, I'm your kind of man." Over a growing gale of laughter, the mortified Shah shouted, "Silence! Silence, all of you, before I have your tongues skewered." Immediately, all sound ceased. Even Ntu Chuma stopped singing. "I see, Walukaja, that this wonderful Iron Man of yours can, indeed, walk and talk," the Shah snarled. "Though by what sorcery you've managed to accomplish this, I do not know. But there is one more test. Can your Iron Man fight?" Ntu Chuma spoke before Walukaja could reply. Fight?" the Iron Man quavered. "Oh, no, I forgot." The wily Shah seized his advantage and gave orders to 2 of his guards. "Nusi, give the Iron Man your sword. Mkaja, engage our metal friend in combat. Let us see what kind of fighter Walukaja has given us." Hastily, the guardsmen did what the Shah commanded. Nusi's sword has pressed into the iron hands of Ntu Chuma, while Mkaja unsheathed his blade and moved toward the Iron Man. As Mkaja advanced, Ntu Chuma tried to hide behind Walukaja, but two other guardsmen pulled the blacksmith aside, and Chuma was alone against Mkaja, who hesitated. "Attack Mkaja, or you will be food for the jackals before sunset," the Shah shouted. Spurred into action by that dire threat, the guardsman swung at Chuma's blade. Clumsily, Chuma parried the blow. "Wait," the Iron Man pleaded. "Can we not talk about this?" Mkaja was in no mood for conversation. As the courtiers gasped, he pressed his offensive. Another swing sent Chuma's sword flying. Making noises that were anything but warlike, the Iron Man retreated as the guardsman's sword dented the metal of its arms and torso. Then Chuma's feet tripped over the edge of the dais upon which the Shah's throne rested, and the Iron Man crashed ignominiously to the floor. The jarring impact caused Chuma to fall apart, revealing a hollow construct with built-up legs and built-in wires and pulleys to guide its movements. From the barrel-shaped torso crawled a diminutive, bleary-eyed individual who turned out to be none other than Pomeface! Exclaimed the Shah in unison with most of the other people in the chamber. "But if this is Pomeface, then who is that?" asked Chipcho, pointing toward the grass-enveloped form everyone thought to be the Bambuti. As if in answer to the courtier's question, the impostor pulled the costume over his head and stood revealed as Kariume, the 11th son of the Shah, who was about the same height as Pomeface. "What possessed you to do such a foolish thing as this, Kariume?" the Shah demanded. "Pomeface said it would be fun," the boy mumbled. "Pomeface, Pomeface, Pomeface! How I weary of that name," the Shah said, hand massaging his brow. He glared balefully at the disheveled Bambuti. "I see it all now," the monarch said. "This has been your work from the beginning, hasn't it? I should have been suspicious since you first suggested the best way to secure the services of this blacksmith. But I never dreamed you would allow your mischief to go this far. Well, you both shall learn what happens to those who mock their Shah. Both of you will be impaled on the same stake." "Your pardon, most honorable Shah," a new voice interjected over a murmur of the few courtiers. The new speaker was the Kuan Yang ambassador. Only rarely did the envoy talk, but when he did, even the Shah listened. "It would seem, most honorable Shah, that you are reacting excessively to the embarrassment of being outmatched in wits by a blacksmith and a court jester," the ambassador said mildly. "Were I to speak of such a reaction to my own thrice heavenly emperor, that most estimable personage might be inclined to give serious consideration to the halting of the long-standing trade that exchanges our silk and spices for your ivory and gold." Carefully, the Shah considered the ambassador's veiled threat. Loss of the Kuan Yang trade would irreparably damage Azania's preeminent position among East Coast kingdoms, and of course his personal power would be diminished. 2 wretched lives were hardly worth the risk of such consequences. "So be it," the Shah said, swallowing his regal pride. "They will live. But you, blacksmith, I never want to see you or your works in the palace again. And you, Pomeface, you will never again interfere in my business with your silly schemes. You know, I could always sell you back to the Kome. Now go. I cannot stand the sight of either of you." The blacksmith and the Bambuti departed gladly as the courtiers quietly voiced their approval. Some of them were glad that they would not be losing the services of the best blacksmith in the kingdom, while others would have missed the amusement that Pomeface provided. Adjusting his ndevu, the Shah glared at the 2 men as they made their exit, and he vowed never to again consider any suggestions from his third-ranking wife. 2 days after the events in the audience chamber, Walukaja was happily at work, completing Kenu Kamau's order of 15 hoe blades. He had not yet called his apprentice back to work, for he longed to be alone with the pleasure of honest toil. Then, above the hiss of hot metal, he heard the greeting of a familiar voice. Good day, Master Blacksmith. Oh no, Walukaja moaned as he turned to see Pomfi standing in the doorway. Oh, great Mulungu, what have I done to deserve your hatred? Why do you continue to send me this curse that walks on two legs? Tell me what I must do to be rid of it. I will do anything you ask, O Mulungu, if you just tell me. I'm glad to see you too, huffed Pomfis. I won't be staying long, but wait till you see what I've brought you. What? Walukaja asked wearily. Cone in, Pomfis said. I'm pretty sure that should say come. Come in, Pomfis said, motioning outside the door. In walked 5 young, beautiful, smiling, and scantily clad women from the hinterlands. Who are these people? Walukaja demanded. Why, they're your 5 women, Master Blacksmith, a grinning Pomfis said. Enjoy. The sounds of squeals and giggles from the women and howls of protest from Walukaja followed Pomfis as he strolled away from the blacksmith's shop. That may be the last time I do a favor for anyone over 5 feet tall, the Bambuti mused. And thus endeth the story. So you all just heard The Blacksmith and the Bambuti from Nyumbani Tales by Charles R. Saunders. I hope you enjoyed the read. I know I stumbled over a few parts there, and there were a couple of words that I ain't quite know. But yeah, I personally liked it. The ending was a little weird, but I kind of figured that he was going to do something like that based on his earlier suggestion. And it sounds like that Walukaja would pretty much prefer to be on his own. I don't know if that brother necessarily enjoys company, period, let alone the company of women, but he was he was wailing in protest, but the girls seemed happy, so yeah. Let me go back and see if there's a few comments to catch up to. But let's see. K&M, hey, good to see you. K&M said that she's definitely pulled in. It's easy to imagine. That's what's up. Oh yeah, I was asking to make sure that y'all were all still here. Marie Toussaint said that she was really interested in the story, so that's where the comments have gone to. Oh, L Jack, good to see that you joined us, brother man. Glad that you're here. Vanessa Vincent, glad to see that you're here as well. All right, so it looks like all of y'all were kind of, let me know. Did you dig it? Did you didn't dig it? Matter of fact, go ahead and hit it up. If you dug it, show me in the comments 1 out of 5, 5 being the highest. What do you give this particular story or this this author overall? I feel like I want to read more from him, but not just yet. Not just yet. I did all of this. I read this particular story to kind of get everybody primed and ready for what is coming on Tuesday of next week. I wanted to get y'all in a sword and sorcery fantasy mood because on Tuesday, we're going to be reading more from Iowan Tribal Stone Flowers, our very own, and from her growing work, Sigil Magic. Now, many of you have come in and you've heard 4 separate excerpts. We read 4 separate excerpts as sort of 2 different chunks that establish the background story behind our 2 boys, Lo and Lar, and how they are interacting with Namira and Lath, their spirit animals. Now, all of this is richly and beautifully written, and it takes place in a fantastic magical like setting where sigil masters are able to command mystery powers that are shown in marks and symbols, and sigil mistresses are able to translate them, and they have relationships with these spirit animals who are very powerful. And I suspect there's an army back there somewhere, and there's the dark riders who look incredibly dope in their ox blood and black with their black horses. And there's a dude named, not Ghostface, Ghost Eyes. There's a brother named Ghost Eyes who I think is albino, and he got a bad attitude problem, and the boys hate their daddy, but they got to fight their daddy because their daddy runs the army that they're ultimately going to be a part of. I mean, it's rich, people. It's rich. It's got a lot of butter and sugar in it. It's rich. And it's a fantastic, fantastic world that we have been blessed to visit on a couple of occasions because Iowan has been so kind to share. And there's a new excerpt. And that new excerpt, as soon as I get it formatted for easy reading, is what we're going to read on Tuesday. So I'm super duper excited about that. And I hope you are too. And so I wanted to get y'all in the mood for this sort of sword and soul, Black people in the fantasy realm. If this has never been your jam, this is an opportunity to make it your jam so that you can experience it. And if this is something that you have experienced in the past, but you want to have a new relationship with it, then Iowan's work is the best place to catch it. I feel like once you hear this little bit, you're going to be hooked, you're going to be addicted. But all in all, I wanted you all to kind of get with this, because one of the things that, even though Charles Saunders did an amazing thing in sort of creating this subgenre, and yes, there are authors that are out there doing that. There are authors who are out there following in the fantastic tradition that he established. We don't see a lot of shine for that. I mean, the fantasy world is out there blow upshuating, and Game of Thrones came into the mix, and the Hobbit, the Tolkien stories are out there making billions of dollars. Harry Potter is modern, but it's still sort of sword and sorcery stuff, billions of dollars, and well, I say Game of Thrones and The Hobbit and Harry Potter, all those billions of dollars. But the Black properties that are out there just aren't meeting with that kind of love. And I think a lot of that is a lack of awareness. I think a lot of that is because people can't check for what they really don't know is out there. Now, some of y'all are far more avid readers than me, and you already know about this world, and you're already delved deep into it, and you got a good grip on it. But some of you didn't know it was out there. Some of you are like me and just didn't know. It was like, I ain't even know they let Black people wear loincloths and hold swords and chain metal and all that stuff. And so I wanted to present an example of that. First of all, sort of where it began, and then show you where it's going. Because Charles Saunders might be the founder of this particular subgenre, but I think Iowan Tribal Stone Flowers is the future of it. And that's real. Like that's a straight up legit endorsement. I think I One Tribal Stone Flowers is going to be the future of Sword and Soul. And y'all, because y'all get down with Storytime with Julian, have the opportunity to get in on the ground floor, get a little taste of it before it blow upshuates and takes over. Because when people are collecting the action figures, and when people are cosplaying as Lathan the Mirror, and when people are cosplaying as Dark Riders, you're going to be like, I remember the first time I heard that story. Yeah. So, wanted to make sure that I kind of primed the pump for that. So, call your neighbors, call your friends. Tuesday, we're going to start with Iowan Tribal Stone Flowers. We're going to read the new excerpt so that you all can get a taste of what is to come. And if you all were on Clubhouse Saturday, you heard the previous excerpts, because I went ahead and just and read what we had and kept the party going, and it was beautiful. So definitely, if you have Clubhouse, good opportunity to catch up on some things and hear some stuff that you may not hear on regular story time. Sometimes I'm gonna bust out some stuff on Clubhouse that you're not going to hear on regular story time, just because it's a different channel. And that's what I'm trying to let y'all know. Different things are going to be happening on different channels. It's not always going to be what you see on Facebook. Sometimes you're going to see some stuff on YouTube that, what? Huh? I didn't see that when it happened on Facebook. Damn right you didn't, because it was a YouTube thing. And sometimes you're going to see stuff on Instagram, and you're going to see stuff on Twitter that might not exist in other places. So make sure that you follow us on all of those channels. All right. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter. That's at Storytime Julian. Subscribe to the YouTube channel now. Again, now that you've heard it, maybe there's a little bit more enthusiasm to have your own copy of this. Copies will get sent out by the end of next week. But what you have to do in order to win a copy today is make sure that you are liking and subscribing and following all three channels. All right. I want to see you following on Instagram. I want to see you following on Twitter. I want to see you like and subscribe on YouTube. Then make a comment on Twitter or on Instagram and post that comment in the box right now. And you know what? Just so I know that it's your comment, hashtag it, hashtag STWJ. Do that for me. Do that for me now. Make sure that you put it in the YouTube comments. I'm giving everybody opportunity. I'm trying to hold some time so that you can follow now, comment now, post it over here, and put the message right here. So Judy Lee, if you followed on Instagram, all you got to do is just comment. Let's see, are you commenting or at in you? I want comments. I want comments on. I want you to tweet me if you're doing it on Twitter. I want you to. Okay, I see what you're saying on Instagram. On Instagram, at in me, inbox me on Instagram. Tweet me on Twitter, inbox me on Instagram, but post your comment here. So make sure it's something that everybody can see, because I don't want no salacious stuff. But post your comment here. I've got 2 to give away. I'm going to give 1 to somebody who commented on Twitter. I'm going to give 1 to somebody who inboxed on Instagram. And that way, everybody gets an opportunity, okay? But I want to see it on the YouTube comments. So Mimi Brown, I see you commenting on Facebook, but you need to post your comment on YouTube in order for it to count. We're going to go back and we're going to check them. We're definitely going to check them. Now, I want to go back and look at some of these comments and just kind of, first of all, let's see what some of the ratings are. We get it's a lot of 5s. Let's see. Angela Lee Rain says it's a wonderful story. Marie says that she thoroughly enjoyed this story. Iowan, the future of Sword and Soul, gives it a 5. Mimi Brown gives it a 5. Mimi Brown gives it a 5 on both platforms. I gotta love it. You gotta love it. Saniqua gives it a 5. Vanessa Vincent says 4 out of 5. That's still what's up. Poetry is my passion gives it a 5. Saniqua says that she was inside this John, and that's dope. And I feel you, and I love it. I love to hear it. I love to hear it. Vanessa Vincent says yes, and she's been waiting, and I know that that's about Iowan. I know that there's a whole lot of enthusiasm to hear Iowan's work. Mimi says she's been waiting for more of her work since Saturday. Melanin Monroe is excited to hear more Sigil Magic. Nikki Lopez gave tonight's work another 5. Mimi Brown says that she has been waiting for this one, and I'm thinking she means the Iowan work, and I don't blame you, because it was so dope. Vanessa Vincent says, guess you're reading this tonight. Yes. I'm confused, but I'm not sure what that, so give me some clarity on that. Mimi knows what's up about Low and Late. They want to jaw they daddy. Understood. And PIMP got a kick out of the synopsis, and I'm glad. I hope all of y'all enjoyed all of it. So let me see what else I'm seeing here. Saniqua said it's me, so I'm guessing that that's one of them. Melanin says we're going to be like, I know her. That's my friend. And that's absolutely, you definitely are going to be like that. I recognize it. I see it. I see the future. If you are not one of the fortunate to win a copy of this book, it's not too late. You can still purchase it. You can purchase the Nyumbani Tales by Charles R. Saunders at Harriet's Bookshop by clicking on this link. Now, if you're following on Facebook, you've got the link. Now, if you're on YouTube, you probably have seen this link a few times. It's bookshop.org/shop Harriet's Bookshop, and you can find it there. We do a lot of promoting of Harriet's Bookshop, and there's a good reason for that. Harriet's Bookshop has been incredibly kind to us in the past. They partnered with us when we did the first wordplay. Some of you got your copy of Insurrections, or your copy of The World Does Not Require You, or your copy of Friday Black at a 10% discount through the good folks at Harriet. Some of you all went to Loyalty and got it, but Harriet's has been working with us on that, and they are working with us very, very generously on an opportunity that's coming up. This weekend, I'm going to make an announcement, and I will make the announcement again on Tuesday. We are now starting our spring book drive. We were supposed to do it over the holiday, but the timing was too tight and some things had come up. But Harriet's is partnering with us, and here is the goal. Let me be really, really clear. I want to make sure that I'm looking in the camera so that you can see. Here's the goal. Our goal is to get a book, a Black-centered, Black-authored book with Black representation in it, in the hands of 100 Black youth. Now, we have partnered with Acta Non Verba, and we have partnered with the Detroit, I have forgotten the full name of it, but the Detroit Reading Black Education Foundation. I'm getting it all kind of mixed up. I'm going to fix that next time. We have partnered with 2 groups, and we already have 50 students, 50 children selected. We are talking from infant all the way to teens. Now, that means we have 50 slots open. This weekend and Tuesday, I'll put up the link. There will be a form for you to fill out. If there is a young person in your life who you would like to have included in the book drive, you're going to fill out the form and you'll get some opportunity to tell us the young person's name, age, what their interests are. We also have a list of books to select from. Put that in. Now, for those of you who have children that you want to get books to, that's how you can participate. For those of you who want to help us put books into the hands of children, we're going to give you the direct link to the Cash App and the Venmo for Harriet's Bookshop. You're going to give it to them directly. They have partnered with us. They already have our book list. They have the addresses of the kids. They have our first 50 kids are already in. They know that we're going to be adding 50 more. And so we're going to be doing 100 kids total. Now, your donations will go directly to purchase those books. We're going to try and raise $2,000 because listen, y'all, I don't know if y'all knew this, but children's books are not cheap. Children's books are typically more expensive. Like you can pick up a decent paperback for about $16. Children's books tend to run $24 and more sometimes. And that's in part because there's illustrations, they're hardback, they're a higher quality paper. They are more expensive to print, even though they have fewer pages. So some of these children's books are going to run up a little bit high. Now, if we run over the $2,000, if we collect over $2,000, we're going to try and get more books into the hands of more kids. If we don't have more kids to give it to, then we're going to give some extra books to some charities that we know work with kids so that they have those books on their shelves. But that's the plan. So there are two ways for you to participate. If you need a book for a young person, we're going to have a link for you to follow so that you can fill out a form so that young person can be added to the list. We will let you know when we run out of spaces. Okay. If you want to help put a book in the hands of those children, we're going to give you a link so that you can help donate. Harriet's has agreed to front the cost of the books so that they can go ahead and go out. But we want to make sure that we don't have any money coming out of their pockets. We want to make sure that every dime that they are fronting to get these books out to the kids gets back to them. And that's why your donations are so important. But Harriet's as a partner, they have been an excellent, phenomenal partner in this. And so I want to make sure that that we honor their partnership with as much active and aggressive participation from all of y'all. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. So be on the lookout for the book drive. It starts on Tuesday officially. There will be a link for you to follow, form for you to fill out. We've got room for 50 more kids. Okay, the goal is 100. We've already got the first 50 plus knocked out, but we've got room for 50 slots. So your little church friend, your little niece, your little nephew, who needs a good Black book with some representation in it, huh? Oh, you said everybody? Because the answer was everybody. So think about the youth in your life. Make sure that you let us know about them so that we can get that going. And if you can, make sure that you donate, all right? And you can participate on both sides. Okay, you might have a kid that you want to put on the list and you still want to put $5 in the kitty. Yes, please, absolutely do that. That's fine. It's okay. Ain't no rules to how we are generous and giving. Listen, y'all, this has been a wonderful night. I've enjoyed spending this time with you. We're close to close. So let me let me reiterate, if I haven't iterated enough, please follow and share our pages and invite a friend. If you like this experience, if this is good for you, if this is part of what you do every week, if this is your ritual and you love it, then share it. Why would you not share something that you love? Why would you not share something that you enjoy? Let the people in your life know, yo, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the reason why I'm not going to be on the phone and you can't reach me from 10 to about 11:15 is because I'm doing story time with Julian, because I'm listening to this brother read these stories. We got things from all the different genres. It's lit and you need to do it and you need to be a part of it. Okay. That's all I'm asking for you to say is just that. And I want you to follow us on these other platforms because I want you to talk about us on these platforms too. I want you to retweet the stuff that we tweet. I want you to regram the stuff that we gram. I want you to comment and share and let me know if there's other kinds of books that you want to hear, if there's other topics that you want us to talk about, if there's other stories and writers that you think we need to hit up. If there are writers whose work we read that you're like, oh my gosh, I think they really should love to hear that. Tell them as a follower. That would be fantastic. All right. Let me see. Nikki Lopez says that I have an 11-year-old that's into anime, but would love for him to explore more. Well, Nikki Lopez, on Tuesday, when the survey comes out, when the form is available, make sure that you fill that out. And it's Acta Non Verba and Engage Detroit. I just made up a whole other, like, Detroit Black Reading but it's Engage Detroit. Thank you so much. Mimi, you're doing it right. I see your comment. So I see it, but we're going to draw them from a hat. We're going to pick them at random, just so you know. But I'm happy that y'all are excited about the book drive. And listen, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming out. Sneakwa, I appreciate you coming out. I appreciate all of you coming out to be a part of Storytime with Julian. Your participation, your enthusiasm about these books, your enthusiasm about this show is what keeps me going and what keeps me doing this. Can't wait to see you guys on Tuesday, where we will read the future of Black fantasy, Mrs. Iowan Tribal Stone Flowers, and her book Sigil Magic. Until then, make sure you tip your griot if you can. Please help support the show. Please follow us on all of these platforms. And that's about it. We're going to close it out. All right. Peace.